Hello and welcome to the show. I am back at the Endurodrome with 3 more vehicles being driven till destruction, starting with a car you might recognise, although not likely, from Beam. This is the Sunstrip. It comes from Street Legal Racing Redline, or initially it comes from there. This vehicle has been, or this mod has been made into Beam, and it does have all of the, radiator, driveline, fuel tank and so on, all of the parts, so it will hopefully destroy itself in a entertaining manner around this circuit. Is it front-wheel drive? I think it is. There is an all-wheel drive version. I've gone for the kind of standard car. The rear suspension looks quite soft. Small front-wheel drive cars do not have a great track record. Well, tell a lie. They have a great track record of bursting into flames around here. They don't have a great track record of surviving particularly long. In fact, the radiator's already gone. Not that that matters a huge... I say not that matters a huge amount around here. Of course it does. The car's going to overheat. But with the engine's not started preheated, it's going to probably last, if it goes out from overheating, depending on the size of the leak and how hot the engine runs, it should be good for a couple of laps at least. There is enough time for other destruction to go on in the course of this car's, well, short life, unfortunately, around this circuit. Yeah, nothing tends to last particularly long. A few cars have. There we go. That rear suspension is slightly alarming. It doesn't really seem to be doing much of a job. It kind of is just folding in on itself. Oh, across the rocks we go. That's not fun. It's actually very strange. It must just be like ultra soft because it's not broken, I don't think. It's just bouncing around a lot. It's not like the wheels are bent. Oh, that's a rock in there. I'd rather not hit. Car is not on the healthiest of conditions. We're going to lose a rear bumper. Bodywork's fine. We can lose... We're going to lose all of the bodywork. Makes no difference. The slight difference, certainly the front, is sometimes bumpers and so on can deflect a little bit of damage rather than it going on the wheel axles, rather than it going on important bits of the car. I mean, this one here's radiator's already gone. The front bumper, I think, has already come off of it. The rear bumper doesn't really do much here. Right, big jump is coming up. We need about 60 miles an hour. We should have that in this car. Yeah, it's going to be good to make it onto the platform. 66 miles an hour, actually a pretty nice speed onto the platform. The only downside, if you get that jump nicely, I got a side skirt. I've got across the speed bump, it's fine. If you get that jump nicely, you land the jump the other side nicely, you end up carrying a lot of speed then towards the speed bumps, and sometimes that can do very nasty things to cars. We've seen a number of cars killed, drive lines and so on those speed bumps. This, I don't think our steering is quite working as it should do, but we are more than capable of getting through the chicane. We are, yeah, you can see when we leave the steering centred, the car pulls to the left. It's not the worst, by no means the worst steering we have ever had around this course. It's not great, but certainly perfectly livable with. Temperature has now got up to relatively warm. Unfortunately, the leak from the radiator, probably a decent size. Might not even be from the initial hit, but if the car's radiator is a little bit weak, it won't take long before there are lots of leaks and every bit of coolant has piddled its way out of the vehicle. I think we have started to get some twisting going on with some of the wheels. The back looks considerably worse than it did. It now does look quite... yeah, it looks quite broken. I don't think we've got much rear suspension left. Although... front-wheel drive car, we lose a rear wheel, doesn't matter. We're going to lose both of them. I mean, it'll make the car difficult in the sense that you have to drag its arse around, but it will still keep going. Come on, through the mud pit we go. Say nicely done. It is getting through the mud pit at least. I'll have to go down a second. It's not a massively powerful engine in this one. Oh, big roll. Oh, we've made a wedge. We have made a wedge car out of the Sunstrip. The front wheel looks a little bit wobbly. Still all connected though, that is the important thing. Steering, I think, has gotten worse, but it's still working. Temperature is now starting to get high. We'll probably get one more chance at the big jump, and then it'll probably overheat, to be fair, although we have still to try and make it that far. We're going to get bounced around down here. It's not doing too badly, actually. For a small front-wheel drive car on this very punishing circuit, It's not done too badly. It's also not been a big fireball, which is which is disappointing, but there we go. You always hope for a big fireball, although we are struggling a little bit more with speed here. We are going slightly slower than we were last time around. It's still enough to get us on to the ramp, but it is an only just. I'm now struggling to get control in the car. Don't really want to hit that, although we're thankfully now not going fast enough to really do too much damage. The engine's poorly. Might go out with an overheating, you know, unless something catastrophic happens. Ooh, down here. Brakes don't feel good. Something doesn't feel right. Try to slow down for that corner. It's not the most helpful of things. Right, come on. Through the... There we are. Through the chicane. We're going to sneak our way on to a third lap. It isn't going to be long now, though, before the engine gives up. Sadly, in the car. It's put on a good show. It's put on a good display from the sun strip. And we jump across there one more time. That's a big bang from the engine. That's the head gasket gone. It's going to overheat very shortly with that now gone. Come on, just keep going. Inch that little bit further along. Oh, and it's clonked the front across those speed bumps. You can see the front wheels are at all sorts of unhappy angles. The engine's giving up. We've lost all sorts of power. We are going to come to a standstill as the engine explodes. Might be able to roll it a little bit, but it's an interesting shape we have managed to make. An interesting shape we have managed to make the sun strip. The front wheel's unhappy. I'm actually kind of surprised. Look at that angle that front wheel is at. That is not a good angle for a front wheel. That is not a good angle for a front wheel at all. Kind of surprised it went that long. It did fairly well. You know, these front-wheel drive cars, the front axles take a battering, and the fact that that's still connected and giving us drive is quite the surprise. So, well done to the Sunstrip. The next vehicle to take on the course is the Regency. Now this, last time a normal version went around here, it had a rather interesting rear axle failure. This is quite the different version, however. It is a presidential limo. It is very large and exceedingly heavy, of course, because it is all reinforced. I did swap the engine and radiator out. The standard engine is woefully underpowered for driving a vehicle like this. So I have got a considerably more powerful engine in this vehicle just to make it a little bit more entertaining to drive around here. But it is going to be very heavy. I presume the suspension is reinforced to deal with the extra weight of the body and all the chassis stuff going on, the reinforcements in there. I hope the suspension is, otherwise it might have some fun times. But it's not likely to be the best handling vehicle. There's apparently a lot of body roll going on in this. Ooh, it's a quite long car, so you've got to try and really fight to get it through there. I suspect speed bumps are going to be mean. Not sure what sort of suspension it's got going on. It looks like my sort of leaf springs at the back, and they're very difficult to kill. So it might help it. We might have issues with the overhangs getting stuck on things, the rocks could play havoc with it. Basically, I'm just hoping for an exciting failure from this. I mean, it might go further. It might go further than the normal Regency if the rear axle doesn't entirely fail on it. That's, I think, unlikely considering the weight of this, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Temperature-wise, it is already alarmingly warm. It is alarmingly warm already, despite having an upgraded radiator on here. That could be a problem, considering we're not even half a lap in and the temperature's already at, well, I guess the operating temperature. If this thing does lose the radiator, we're going to have fun and games. Oh, there it goes. It might overheat quite quickly if something else doesn't break before. That would be a shame, but perhaps not a surprise. Back of it's at all sorts of funky angles. Come on, Regency Limo. We've got to get you to the big back jump on this circuit. It would be a terrible disappointment if you didn't make it to the big, you know, it's probably going to be okay across there because it should be fast enough. It should have the power to, you know, make the jump. Although if it doesn't, if this thing starts rolling, there's a lot of car. There is a lot of car to be rolling down the road. Here we go. Regency Limo. That's a big crunch. Nothing important broke. Oh, we're struggling for speed. This isn't going to go well. Oh, okay, that could have gone a lot worse. It could have gone a lot worse. I was expecting a lot more of a crunch as we hit that, and it just didn't really happen. You see, across the speed bumps, the car's okay. Temperature-wise, I was actually expecting it to kind of always go to max very quickly. We're a drift limo, unintentional drift limo, but there we go. It's like the quad-rotor one I have on Horizon 4. We should be good to make it through this next section. We've still got steering, unless something happens on that jump. And the suspension's been largely okay. Ooh. Okay, I think we have got some collapsing going on at the front. The way those corners are diving, that's a concern. That's a concern, so we are leaning horribly. Now, it's not actually affecting us in terms of our ability to make it around a corner yet. The issue might be is if we have to steer and it's on a speed bump. You know, like there, for example, which we do have to do in a number of places, because the weight transfers and then squishes one side down into the road, which is, you know, normally okay, but if it does that on the side that has no suspension, that gets crushed into the road across a speed bump, and it shatters that, you know, axle. We might survive with one front wheel lost, but it's a big might. It's a very, very big might. That, ooh, it's got wobblier. That's ooh. I wouldn't want to be inside this car. It wouldn't be feeling very presidential in terms of comfort. Our engine's poorly. The temperature gauge hasn't actually really gone up. I've seen this a couple of times from cars. Engine temperature gauge hasn't really gone up, but it is actually starting to damage. All the rear axle's having fun times. I'm not sure this car is particularly healthy anywhere. Oh, God, the rear axle is not happy in this. If it isn't going to be the engine that dies, something else is going to die. I think the engine... In some ways, sadly, I think the engine is going to die before the rest of this gets much worse. But it's quite a bowed limo. We've got like the old banana power-up or destruction thing from Carmageddon. Almost. Not quite as extreme, but not that far away. Oh, God, it looks so bad just watching the front of the car as it hits all of these bumps. Everything's flexing. I'm kind of impressed that it's survived this long. The head gasket's gone, the torque's been reduced. I think it's going to conk out, sadly, before we get to the jump. Yeah, there we go. The engine is a goner, and it's not even going to be able to roll because we're on a hill. Suspension was having problems. Suspension was having massive problems in there. Very difficult to see, but I think it had mostly all given up, to be honest with you. I think it had mostly all completely and utterly given up. The problem is the radiator. The radiator in this is always likely to be a little bit exposed, always likely to take a bit of damage early on, and yeah, we lost it very, very quickly. I mean, it's not got further than the normal Regency, but on an interesting show, not quite as impressive, mind. And our final vehicle to take on the course today is one that does stand a chance. It won't be easy, but it does stand a chance of, well, going the furthest. This is the Comet V6 R4, essentially a Group B rally car. All-wheel drive, mid-engined, a huge, huge amount of power, and of course, designed for running off-road. That is something that you probably want when tackling a punishing kind of off-road course. You want very, very strong suspension, and, well, theoretically, a rally car should be very good with this. There is a downside, of course, to all of this. One of the, if not the most important role in this series is cars have to be driven as hard as possible. Sometimes that means you go for a silly spin, but yeah, vehicles have got to be driven as hard as they can around this course. Now, in a rear-wheel drive sports car, supercar, high-powered muscle cars and so on, you can't actually drive them particularly hard. There's no grip on the dirt, they spin their wheels like mad, so they aren't actually travelling particularly fast. No, they're not designed for this surface, but they struggle to carry the speed, so they don't hit the jumps, they don't hit the speed bumps with quite as much force as, let's say, a car that is designed for this sort of surface. That's why things like the Hopper, the Blackfoot can get into trouble, because they'll keep going. Even when they start taking damage, you can still drive them very hard. And, you know, from stock, you can drive them very, very quickly around this sort of circuit because they've got the grip on the dirt. And that tends to mean, well, they hit these jumps harder than just about anything else. Suspension's stronger, but over time, that tends to give way. It's a weird, roundabout sort of way of balancing stuff around here. It basically gives us interesting results. Let's face it, this isn't exactly a science, this series. This is more about fun and entertainment and seeing cars get destroyed over a period of time. We're going to bounce around. Oh, something terrible, aren't we? Yep. The cover is very quick, it's very, very quick indeed, and has got the tyres and suspension capable of dealing with this sort of terrain. This is probably going to be, outside of maybe a trophy truck, the fastest vehicle you'll see around here. Oh, it will jump the entire concrete section, although a big spin on the landing is a little bit of a problem. The other downside, of course, with rally cars, off-road vehicles, higher ride height does tend to lead to falling over. The cover is unlikely to see too much of that problem, in that while it has got, you know, higher ride height than some cars, it's still not exactly a truck. So we probably, I mean, we will see, I have no doubt, a roll at some point along the way, but it's not going to fall over every corner. That's why a trophy truck perhaps isn't the ultimate vehicle around here, because it falls over too easily, and we may well see it land on a wheel and probably ping off. We might try the trophy truck at some point, but yeah, the cover is an interesting prospect around this circuit, because a lot of these sort of speed bumps, until the vehicle starts taking damage, I doubt these are going to hold much fear for it. It should just bounce across them, no problem. That being said, are we good? I thought we might have done something to a rear wheel then, but no, I think maybe just as we went to get on the power, the car wasn't settled. I mean, the car is spending a lot of time with not all of its wheels on the ground. We'll run across there. Again, those speed bumps have killed cars. It's killed. The Regency died on that. I think the Falcon did as well. This should not have any problems with those. It's running across them. If it clips them, doesn't really matter. Through the rock garden we go. It's not quite as perfectly positioned as I would have liked, but you know, it's alright. Jumping very, very far there. It's a big landing, but the car's got the suspension to deal with it. Got to be mindful of what happens on the landings. We've seen bouncing around a lot from cars. This is a very bumpy circuit. It's what breaks the suspension on a number of road cars, like down here, for example. You don't want to hit a bounce awkwardly and go flying off into the concrete. We have seen that a few times. We've managed to avoid it with the cover that time around. Because as good as the off-road suspension is, it's not completely impervious to the bumps, especially not at the speed the V6R4 is going to be capable of taking. Like down here, I'm a little worried about getting us just having the rear of the car lose control and end up taking the jump. I don't know if I want to. I don't really want the car jumping cleanly over there, but at least we do kind of lose the momentum heading towards a speed bump there. If I could save this, it would be great. Couldn't quite get it in the right position to do an epic drift into the petrol station. Braking, I have noticed. That's a bit peculiar. It wasn't doing that before. I was able to hold it if it's sliding. I wonder if we have just started to brake a little bit in the suspension. The corners look a little funky. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, especially when you are, you know, bouncing around almost constantly. Hard to tell what's just because the car's hitting awkward bits of terrain and what's actually damage. I'm not sold on the rear right of the car being in good condition. Well, I mean, look at the car. It's got the rear. I don't even know what bit to call that. It's got the lights hanging off and whatever they call bits of bodywork flailing. I mean, it looks. Oh, bodywork's gone. But no more flailing bodywork. That's fine. We can lose that part. Those parts are unimportant, really, in the grand scheme of things. There was quite a lot of understeer through there, but probably just overdrove it on the way in or something silly. It's still. I mean, it is alarming how quick this car is around here. This is kind of uncharted territory, really, for a vehicle. Yes, it's a rally car, but nothing hits these sections as fast as this does. The other off-roaders some of them were okay speed-wise, but nothing's doing 60, 80 miles an hour through some of these corners. That, I don't know what that was we hit, but we hit something badly there. We have got big issues. We've got very big issues with the V6R4. I think we might actually be dead. I think the whole steering is gone. Now, one thing, I'm not allowed to go in reverse, but I am allowed to use gravity to pull a car backwards, but this has done a lot more damage than that. It's actually, you can see where the suspension is. Can I get you to roll back? Might be able to get you to roll back and then go forward on you. The whole front end of the car is being put up. Look at this front spring. That's not where the wheel should be. I mean, there's a lot of fire going on as well. That's a lot of fire going on the V6R4. I didn't think there was any rocks over there to hit. I mean, yeah, we did hit the jump slightly at the not right angle. Yeah, I got no steering. That is actually shunted. That front. That's the entire suspension. Is it double wishbone on this? I think has been pushed back a good like 30-40 centimeters. if not more. That's a huge amount of damage on one landing. I can't. I can't pull the car back anymore. It's just, I'm actually surprised it's pulling that way because that wheel's dead straight, so I don't know why it would be, but that wheel there has not got enough grip. I mean, the terrain might not be helping us. I guess we're not technically... We need to be able to get into the hut if we're going to be able to continue. If I can't get into the hut, let's try to use some of the terrain. We're not going to be able to, I don't think. The fuel tank is leaking, and that will probably put us out as well. No, I can get up to there, but I just cannot turn the car. And if we can't make the course, then we are out. That is out with an unusual... I say unusual. It's technically it'll be out with steering failure, but that is a lot more than just a broken steering right there. That's seriously impressive. And that's the thing with rally cars and high-performance off-roaders. They are very quick. And if something does go wrong, they hit very hard, and that's hit hard enough to tear the entire front suspension. Yeah, that is a new failure that we've seen some interesting suspension and axle failures and so on. That one is not something that we've seen before. And there we go. That's the curse of a rally car. a big old Comet barbecue. So, on to our leaderboard, and it would be the Comet that goes furthest of the day. It'll go into a 20th place, which, distance-wise is not too bad. It beats the Camry, it beats the Bolide. It doesn't quite beat the Pizima Rally Car or the likes of the Delta 88. It was a spectacular run, and it's probably the fastest to get to that stage, fastest to get onto lap 3 and so on, but ultimately it's the speed of the Comet almost that was undoing. It got unlucky. The car was in generally pretty good condition, but one slightly wonky landing, one very, very heavy hit on the ground, and that tore the entire front suspension apart. So, yeah, unlucky, but that's what can happen with the rally cars. The Sunstrip also does pretty well. 25th place for a front-wheel drive little sports car is not bad going at all. It doesn't quite beat the Regency or the all-wheel drive Comet, but beats the Bolide Group 4. Went out a very, very similar place to that Group 4 car, just rolled a fraction further down the road. We have to go a little further down, of course, to find the Regency Lmo. 39th place for that. It beats the stanced A86, beats the Mustang, beats the other stanced Pizima. It could have been worse, I think, for the vehicle. In the end, it was a little bit unlucky with the overheating. That car did overheat very, very quickly. And the radiator went super, super early on that. It was just starting to get fun with the suspension falling apart. When the limo, it was a little bit too much for the limo. Perhaps all of the weight going on in that car, making the engine work pretty hard, is less than ideal. But there we go. It is what it is. That, though, is going to be it for this episode. As ever, I shall link all the mods used in the description so you can download them and have a go with them yourself. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.